Welcome to the Responsible Marketing Podcast, conversations about marketing, sustainability, and how we can all help in becoming more responsible organisations. I'm Jo, a marketing strategist and consultant with a career spanning corporate, small medium business, and self-employment, incorporating marketing commercial skills in various guises, and now flying the flag for a more sustainable and kind future for all. Today's guest is Kelly Smith, founder of award-winning Spelk Studios based in the northeast of England. Spelk Studio specialise in bespoke and small batch furniture and kitchen design, championing sustainability and responsible sourcing. Kelly and I discussed some of the misinformation within the furniture industry and why education is key, Spelk Studio's progress in attaining the Investors' Environment Bronze accreditation, the challenge of fast furniture and with some terrifying stats, and the challenges of aiming for true transparent sustainability and the limitations of the supply chain. Let's dive straight in. Hi everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm delighted to have Kelly Smith with me from Spelk Studio. Hi Kelly.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Thank you
Good.
for having me on the podcast.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for giving me some time in your busy afternoon. So Spelk Studio, I know a little bit about you, but obviously I don't know if my listeners and watchers will do. So why don't you introduce yourself, give us a bit of your background, where you've got to with Spelk, and what you really plan to do with that.
So, Spelk Studio initially started as a furniture design business, and really it came from me buying my own house and not being able to get suitable furniture. So, I was looking around for things to buy for my house, and the difficulty that I was having was that essentially a lot of the stuff that was on the market was either really expensive or it was affordable, but it was terrible quality. And it had been produced overseas in countries where they had issues with things like child labor and not being sustainable. And I didn't really want to buy that. So what happened was my husband and I, between us, ended up designing some furniture for our house and having it made. And the first thing we did was this dining table that I'm sitting at now. And then we did some other bits like a bookcase and a shoe cupboard for the hall and different things. And that was when I first started to think, this could be a business. And prior to that,
sorry, go on. Yeah. So prior to that, so how did you get to designing
prior
furniture,
to that,
basically?
yeah. So I had been a lecturer. I'd been off on maternity leave for a while. There'd been the whole pandemic thing.
Yeah.
And I decided that instead of going back, I would give the furniture thing a go.
Oh, amazing. And so I know that obviously you've kind of got quite a strong feeling, I'm going to say it that way, about sustainability, a very strong feeling. Where's that come from? Like, where's that started from? Have you always had that kind of inclination towards wanting to be more or buy more responsible items or work with more sustainable businesses? How's that come about?
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I live here on this planet, and I would quite like not to die, and for my son not to die as well, which is what it comes down to. We've only got this one planet. Like if you look out at the rest of the universe, this is the only planet where we know that there's life. So if we screw that up, it's absolutely disastrous in galactic terms because we're the only planet that's got what we've got.
Yeah.
And so I really think that we need to do something about it. And it's something that I've heard talked about since I was a child. Even when I was at school back in the 80s and 90s, they were telling you about climate change and things like that. And it seems like we still haven't done anything about it. And I know that I'm only one person with a tiny business and I can't change the world, but I kind of feel like you have to do something, even if it's only a small bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's definitely a stand. Again, I'm also a very small business trying to educate people and not persuade, because I don't want to persuade people to do something. I want them to embrace kind of like a bit more responsibility. And it's for us all, to, like personally or professionally, to look into what we can do to either positively impact the planet or just make people feel, a fairer state for all kind of thing. Look at how we run our businesses, are we fair wage, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, no, I totally get you. And I think a collective voice can speak volumes, can't it? Like I sometimes feel like I'm a small voice in a very big world, but otherwise if we don't as small voices talk, then how is anything going to change? Because that's always the way things change, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think there has to be a small voice to begin with,
Yeah.
and then other voices join it, and then maybe the big voices listen.
Yeah. So did that stem from your upbringing, perhaps? Were your parents quite conscious of environment and environmental impact, or was it just purely from school, or do you think you just wired that way to be kind of almost at one with nature, really?
My parents were very big on gardening. So I
Ah,
literally grew up on my dad's allotment, growing things and seeing all the animals and the insects and so on, and always felt very close to nature and to the world that I lived in, and was
mm,
always really interested in things like birds and plants. So I suppose it partially comes from that.
yeah.
But then as time's gone on, I just find it increasingly worrying reading the news and hearing things about climate change.
Mm.
And I keep thinking, somebody has to do somebody, and it's always, somebody has to do something,
Someone
but it's
else.
never me, so somebody has to be the somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that why you got involved in the Environment and Sustainability Committee for Durham County Council?
It is partially. So initially, I got involved with a protest group in my local area while I was on maternity leave.
Okay.
They were protesting about developers building on green fields instead of using brownfield sites.
Hmm.
And then from there, I got elected to the parish council, which I did for several years, and I ended up being the planning officer
Oh,
because I
wow.
knew a lot of stuff that they sent me on all the planning courses at County Hall. So I knew all the different points that you could use to object to planning applications and so on. And so
Ah.
I did that for a while.
Mm.
And then last year there was an advert for volunteers to join the Environment Committee at the council. And so I put my name down for that and was selected.
Yeah, well, you clearly got amazing credentials behind you for that anyway. And how's that going? How do you feel? Obviously, again, Durham County Council, one council, sorry, one region, one county in the UK. But how do you feel that's going? Like, is it quite positive? Are they working towards net zero? Are they managing to bring on board businesses and individuals to support that as well?
It's a difficult situation at the moment because a couple of years ago, the council declared an ecological crisis,
Mm.
which meant that everything that we did had to be working towards our net zero target.
Yeah.
But then earlier this year, a Reform Council was elected and they've rolled back that declaration of ecological crisis.
Ah,
So now suddenly everything's changed. We're no longer working towards those targets. So
okay.
it's quite an interesting time to be on the Environment Committee because my job is not as an elected representative. I'm there as a member of the public,
Yeah.
and I'm
Okay.
essentially supposed to be scrutinizing the decisions of the elected members and kind of keeping things on track.
In fact, I'm going to the Durham County Pound, I want to say. Is that right? There's an event, I think, in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes.
So I'm interested to hear kind of what's going to be said there, because I know obviously that's about getting businesses involved, but I think as opposed to the
Mhm.
public. But equally, it's information that I wasn't even aware
Mhm.
about. So yeah, I'm quite interested to hear. I had heard a rumor about things changing on the environmental target type of
Mhm.
thing. So yeah. So back to your furniture making. So your background is obviously lecturing. Where did you find your talent for furniture making? And because I know your husband does kitchens, I think now, doesn't he? He's launched his
Yes, he
kitchen
does. Yeah.
business. So is that a talent of like wood turning or I don't, oh, is it design work you do rather than making?
Yeah, my husband and I both do design, and then we work with selected manufacturers and
Aha.
installers,
So, and
depending on
again, have you always been, a creative on that score? Have you always enjoyed kind of like the art and designing type sides to the world?
I've always enjoyed that kind of thing, but
Yeah.
my career wasn't specifically in that. I was more in teaching.
Okay.
So initially, I worked at the university lecturing, and then I worked at the college supporting young people who were struggling to access higher education.
Mm,
So maybe people from disadvantaged backgrounds, people with disabilities, and so on, who would normally struggle to attend university, and
yeah.
sort of supporting them and teaching them and getting them to the point where they could complete a degree. So,
Yeah.
although I'd always had a lot of creativity in my private life, not necessarily in my career.
Yeah, okay. But still a very, very, very worthwhile career that you've had
Mhm.
for sure up to this point. And you mentioned about your manufacturers. So do you work with a very small kind of handful of specific manufacturers that align with you and your beliefs on the environmental side and sustainability? Is that what you do? Or are you open to other manufacturers perhaps approaching you for manufacturing resource?
It depends on what a particular client wants, and
Mm,
we'll always push in the direction of choosing something that's more sustainable.
Yeah.
if possible. But sometimes a client will say, I don't want that, or I want this instead.
And that
And
could be
at the end,
materials as opposed to process of manufacturing or yeah, all aspects, is that?
some it's a difficult question because sometimes people will ask for materials that aren't really sustainable, and I'll
Okay.
always try to push them towards something else that I think
Can you
is
give an
better.
example? So if someone's asked for something they think's maybe, more responsible material, but perhaps isn't.
So, for example, if we're making something from wood, I would always prefer to choose something like ash, which is quite sustainable,
Yeah.
versus things like a walnut, which can have a bit of an uncertain origin because it's a tropical hardwood.
Okay.
And there are people who will ask for walnut, and that's what they want. But if I could get away with ash with sort of a walnut stain, that would be my preference.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say to you. So you can not manipulate it because that sounds negative, but adapt it so that it gives the finish that people want, but again, it fits the brief
Yeah,
of being more responsible then from a sourcing point of view, doesn't it?
yeah, and we do know a lot about materials that are available and different options that are on the market,
Yeah.
which might be a suitable alternative for what a particular customer wants.
And is it just wood you work in, or do you use all sorts of different materials?
It depends really. So, the initial furniture collection that was designed for Spelk was made in FSC certified ash.
Mm-hmm.
But other tables that we've done since then have been things like steel legs with a reclaimed wood top, or
Oh.
maybe using materials like Ferreso, which is made from recycled coffee and
Oh.
wood chips. So lots
Oh.
and lots of different stuff that you can use.
I guess do you work mainly with consumers or businesses? Bit of both, I think.
It's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just trying to shuffle around, so I'm not massively in the light that's suddenly starting to come through the window.
It's the sunshine halo. Well, clearly, it shines on the righteous.
What was the question? Sorry.
So about the materials, really. First of all, do you work with businesses and consumers? I think it's a mix of both, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So do
so
you find,
sometimes it will be an individual who wants something for their house.
yeah.
Other times it will be someone like an interior designer who's
Hmm.
doing a project and wants a piece for a project that they're working
Okay.
on.
And do you find, talking from maybe a business to business kind of situation where you're working with an interior designer, are they aware of different materials then, or is that an education piece that you actually deliver as well as Spelk Studio? Educating people and teaching what's available, what else, what alternatives could be used.
I think it's a bit of both. So some clients will ask for certain materials
Mm,
that are sustainable and they know a lot about it. Other times, like I said, they'll ask for something that's less sustainable, and I'll try and suggest some alternatives.
yeah. And how do you find
Yeah.
from a pricing point of view on your furniture versus, I mean, I know there'll be such a wide price gap on the market really for furniture. But obviously you'll have, like you say, if you're using reclaimed woods, for example, or more responsibly sourced materials. Do you find it hard to pitch your pricing in the market as it is because there's such a variety of, like you say, manufactured from perhaps easily sourced but not necessarily responsible materials versus really top ends, you know, materials. Well, I guess walnut, for example, but they don't know, like you say, you don't necessarily know the origin of the material there.
There is a huge variety of furniture on the market,
Mm,
and I think in a lot of cases it's misleading as to what it's made from,
okay.
because you'll see a table, for example, advertised as oak finish,
Yeah.
which is hiding the fact that it's actually made from rubber wood, which is not fantastic. It's quite sustainable, to be fair. I'm just not massively keen on it.
Okay.
Um, but it's a less expensive wood, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And somebody might think that they're buying oak, but actually it's rubber wood with oak finish.
So is
And
that like a stain then to make it look like oak, or is that a layer of oak on
yeah,
top? So it's generally a
sometimes
stain.
there's a difference between oak and oak finish,
Mm,
and people don't always understand what they're buying. So that's one problem. And yeah, it can be really difficult to explain to people why one table costs more than another,
yeah.
because to them it's a wooden table.
Yeah. I think there's
And it might
also,
it might superficially look quite similar.
yeah, okay. But also, I think there's a perception, perhaps, if you get a designed piece, so it's a bit like artwork. If you commission a piece of personalized artwork, so if you ask a designer to create a piece of furniture for their house, or whether it's to suit a size, or whether it's a material, or whether they just want something very different from the marketplace, there's always a perception, I think, of a really loaded price, because obviously there's a huge amount of thought and design time and thinking time that goes into it. So where do you guys pitch yourselves in, again, with that? Are you quite high end, or do you find yourselves maybe making options that are more affordable but perhaps have a slightly different unique selling point, for example?
I would love to do things that are more affordable, but to achieve that, you need mass production,
Yeah,
which
okay.
means you need volume.
Okay.
So when I was looking around different manufacturers to get things at a reasonable price, I would have to be ordering £100,000 worth of furniture to
Wow.
get the price per piece down to somewhere around high street level.
Okay,
And obviously,
gosh.
I haven't got that amount of money. I'm making either one-offs or, batches of five at the
Yeah.
most, which unfortunately pushes the price up. And one of my long-term goals is to do some more batch production to bring the price down a bit, but
Yeah.
the business isn't there at this point.
Yeah,
So
because you're
in
only
many
new still,
cases,
right? So yeah.
yeah,
But
in
you're
many
launching.
cases it's a one-off piece.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for that as well, because how amazing to have a piece that's designed by you that which nobody else has. There's always a space for that, I think, as well. So, and you have an amazing reputation, because I've been stalking you and having a little look and things. So, you do have an amazing reputation with that. And so your manufacturers, how did you pick them? Like the ones you work with for the jobs you've had so far?
I think when I started the business, I was quite naive in terms of how easy it would be to get stuff made.
Okay.
And it took quite a long time to figure out the designs and talk to different manufacturers. And like I said, a lot of them turned me down because I didn't want the volume.
Mm,
And a lot of them turned me down because I didn't how can I explain this? Basically, wanting one-offs is not what most people want to supply. So
yeah.
rather than using factories, it tends to be small artisans,
Mm,
people who are making things by hand
mm,
generally. And there is one table and stool in the collection which is set up for small batch manufacturer with a company in Yorkshire. But apart from that, it's generally one-offs.
And do they tend to be people based in the Northeast, close to you, or do you have them all over the country?
If I can find someone in the Northeast, I'll always choose them for a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
So number one, I can go down there and actually see what they're doing and talk to them.
Yeah.
But number two, it's supporting the manufacturing economy in the Northeast,
Yeah.
which is another reason why I like to make stuff in the UK. So if I can get it made in the Northeast, I will. If I
Mm,
can't find anybody in the Northeast who can make things, then I'll go slightly further afield, like this factory in Yorkshire that
yeah.
makes some bar stools.
Yeah. But still, still north of the M25, I suppose. So
It's
still
difficult to
useful, isn't
find
it?
out who does
Yeah.
what. If you say who are
Yeah.
the furniture manufacturers in the Northeast, there aren't that many of them that I can name, and there are probably more out there that could do stuff,
Mm.
but maybe
Well,
they
we're giving a
haven't got a
shout out to
website or they're
any.
not on Instagram.
Yeah, let's give a shout out to any manufacturers who would be interested in doing either one-offs or small batches, because you just never know who listens and who watches. So, if you had a little pool of manufacturers, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it? But I guess it is difficult. So my background's in manufacturing, corporate manufacturing. So I kind of understand about setup and things like that. And yeah, you're right. To produce one-off pieces is as a factory, so as a medium kind of size factory setup, it's hugely expensive and time consuming, and
Mm.
so operationally it's almost a cost that you couldn't possibly entertain.
Mm.
But I love the fact that you work with artisan makers, because actually that's exactly what it should be, shouldn't it? Because if you're doing a one-off design, for example, how brilliant is that it's been designed by you, it's been made, but literally handmade by a craftsman, or craftsperson. So I think it adds an amazing element to that as well.
It
So
also doesn't have to be a one-off. So
mm,
there's a catalogue of pieces I've produced before, for
okay.
example. So you could
Okay.
look through that catalogue and say, can I have this table or a variation on that table? And I already know that design works because it's been made before.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
you're cutting out the cost of all of the design and prototyping work, and going straight to the manufacturing
Okay.
stage.
And
Maybe you
still,
choose slightly different materials.
yeah,
Maybe it's a slightly different size, but in general,
it's the
the design is
same.
more or less the same.
Yeah. So would they still place an order through you to do that?
They would still place an order through me, and you can either say, I want a completely bespoke piece,
Yeah.
in which case there's going to be some element of design work that you'll be paying for,
Mm,
or it's going to be looking at catalogs of pieces that have been done before and saying,
yeah.
can we do this but slightly wider, or can the top be made of something else?
Yeah, amazing. And is that brochure online then? Can I add it to the show notes when we send the podcast out to the
It's
wide
not
world?
online. It probably should be, and that's one of the things that is in the works at the moment is a new
Okay.
website. Yeah, that's one of the things that needs to be online, I think. At the
Yeah.
moment, it's sort of people coming to us and saying, can we get this?
Okay.
And we're talking about what they want and coming up with some designs.
Yeah.
And like I said, because my husband's now on board, we're moving into kitchens as well.
Yeah. Exciting times. Mm. So just on your process on how that works, just run me through how that would happen. So, for example, if I wanted, again, dining table, for example, making, what was the process there that I would go through?
Essentially, you would get in touch and you would say, I'd like a dining table. Maybe you've got some inspirations. Maybe you've seen a piece that I've done before and you want something like that.
Hmm.
And then we'll talk about whether you want to look at the catalogue of existing designs or whether you want something truly bespoke, which is going
Mm.
to cost a bit more.
Yeah.
And then basically we'll put together a package for you. So we'll say, right, you want this table design and we're going to put this top and these legs. And then this is how much it's going to be by the time we source it from the different manufacturers. The legs might be made in one place, a wooden top might be made somewhere else, and then we put them together.
Put them together. And do you make a prototype? I'm guessing if it's, again, if it's a
If
costly
if it's
setup
the
to
first
manufacture,
time, yeah,
say
if
again?
it's the first time that we've ever
Yeah.
done that table design, then we'll have to make a prototype. So usually it will be a digital prototype. It'll get drawn on the computer
Ah,
first,
yeah,
and
okay.
we'll sort of look at it in 3D.
Yeah,
And then from there, we'll generally go to some kind of small model, maybe like paper or cardboard or something.
yeah.
And then it moves to the workshop. And usually my husband will knock something together out of bits of wood that's roughly the right shape and size.
Okay, yeah.
And then
Hmm.
we'll sit at it and stuff, and I'll say this is too low, or you can't get your legs under it, or whatever. And there'll be a couple of iterations of that. And then it will go to whichever workshop it's going to, depending on the
Yeah,
materials. And they'll probably iterate the design a bit as well,
okay.
depending on how they're going to set it up with their machinery or their tools.
Yeah. And
Say,
do you
well,
send the
we
design?
think this bit needs changing or
Yeah,
whatever.
do you send the design through to them first just to check that they're, well, their capability, but also if they're happy, again, if there are any changes to be made before you start your prototyping, really, is that, I guess you work quite closely with them.
Generally, we do ours first because we know what we
Okay.
want it to look like.
Ah, okay.
And
No
and
interference then.
especially with tables, it's difficult to go wrong because it's four legs and a top. So, it's fairly straightforward in most cases.
Yeah, okay. Well, you think so. I'd dread to think if I was involved in doing
Chairs are
something
more
like that.
complex because they've got more pieces in them.
Yeah,
Tables and stools are fairly
fairly
straightforward.
straightforward. Excellent.
Not much
Eh,
that can go wrong with the table
well, hopefully not.
in most cases.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you got some awards, I've noticed.
We did. We won an
Mm.
award earlier this year. So it's the Northeast Business Awards. And we won the Startup Award for, I think it's Durham, Sunderland, and South Tyneside
Yeah.
region,
Hmm.
which
Well
was
done.
really exciting. Yeah.
It's really
And
exciting.
yeah, because until this point, I have wondered to a certain extent, if I'm mad for doing this. Because several people have said that. One man told me that I would need £1 million to set up a furniture business, and it just wasn't possible.
Wow.
And I've heard that from a few different places, like this is not going to work, or
Yeah. Well, I hope you've sent a photo of your lovely award to that gentleman who said that maybe it wasn't worth doing.
yeah. So yeah, we've done quite well to win that award. It verifies that I was not mad, and
There's definitely a space
actually
for it, right?
it's going reasonably well to the point where I've now got a second employee on board. I mean,
Amazing.
I say employee. There's been some discussion between me and my husband whether he works with me or for me.
Oh, oh,
So
that's
I
interesting.
think we've agreed that he works with me.
Okay. But actually, we probably both know he works for you, really, right?
Yeah. He is adding on a different aspect of the business. So, like I
Yeah.
said, I've done furniture in the past, and now we're going to be doing furniture and kitchens.
Yeah. So, and that will be standalone pieces or fixed wall pieces or mix of both on
So
his side of the
in
business.
terms of kitchens, it's fitted kitchens,
Yeah.
and but because of the nature of the bespoke design process, we can
Mm.
do pieces that you wouldn't get from a standard high street kitchen showroom. So we
Mm.
can normally, if you buy a kitchen, they'll give you standard size units with a filler at the end,
Yeah.
whereas we could design you a bespoke unit that fills all of your space.
So slightly
Or we would do,
wider or
yeah,
yeah, something that's useful rather than having a filler.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
things like pantries or cocktail cabinets, various things like that, which again are not off the shelf pieces, they're designed bespoke.
Yeah, it's exciting. And so what's his background? Is he a designer by trade as well or
Yeah, so he trained as an interior designer
okay.
and he's worked in kitchens for about 18 years.
Mm.
And I think he's seen me having all this fun running a furniture business and he's thought, why am I still going to work every day when I could be doing that? So he's kind of come on board with me now and he's going to do kitchens.
And how have you found it so far? I think it's quite new that he's joined the business, right? So how have you found it
Yes,
so
he
far as
joined me
a
last week.
okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So too new for me to ask how's it going. It's clearly in its honeymoon
yeah,
period still. So do you find
yeah.
yourself like non-stop talking about it though? So you can never get away
It
from
is,
work?
yeah. I mean, we were like that before, to be
Oh,
fair,
okay.
because we'll be sitting having dinner and talking about something that's happened at work or something that's been in the news related to design or whatever. Because we've got the same interests, we tend to talk about it. But
Yeah.
now there's really no getting away from it.
Yeah. Sleep and breathe and eat. Yeah, absolutely. I also saw that you're working towards an investor's environment bronze level. Tell me more about that.
I think we felt it was important to get some kind of accreditation to reassure consumers that we're not just paying lip service to being eco-friendly. We're
Yeah.
actually putting the policies in place and doing the best that we can.
Hmm.
And I picked the Investors in Environment accreditation because it's a British accreditation.
Yeah.
So things like B Corp are American,
Yeah.
whereas Investors in Environment is specifically British.
Hmm.
And there's a local consultancy called Genie
Okay.
that
Oh, yes, I've heard of Jeannie.
guides
I had
local
Annie
businesses
Soulsby
through.
on the podcast, actually. I think she's
Yeah.
part of Jeannie. Yeah. Mm.
So there's some local support available to
Yeah.
guide you through getting these accreditations, which I think is really important. And as far as I know, it's a fairly good accreditation to have, whereas things like B Corp, there've been some questionable businesses that have got that certification.
Yeah, there was a bit of backlash, wasn't there, about them allowing it to be you or taken on board by corporates and things as well, and how they were
Hmm.
going to monitor that. So yeah, there has
Yeah.
been some
And that's
pushback.
why I don't rely on accreditations when I'm choosing partners to work with,
Okay.
because there's lots of businesses that aren't accredited, but they are actually really eco-friendly and they're doing their best.
Yeah, and that's the kind of conversation that I'm having with businesses now. You can work towards accreditation. It's a great framework to use to get your process
Mhm.
in place and get, I don't know, a roadmap and a strategy there and everything else. But you don't have to be accredited, and a lot of,
Mhm.
especially if you're looking at ISOs, for example, and B Corp, they're very expensive. And for, a
Yeah.
very small business, it can be financially just not achievable at all.
That
So,
was another reason why we didn't go down the B Corp route,
yeah,
to be honest.
absolutely. I totally get that. So I've partnered with CSRA, who are also UK based, although they work globally. And then again, much more affordable for SMEs, which is, why I've partnered with them really. So yeah, it's really good. So have you found, how long have you been accredited for?
I'm classed as working towards bronze accreditation, which is the first level.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm being supported in developing an environmental policy,
Mm,
thinking about my carbon footprint and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah, good. Excellent. So you've also got an off-the-shelf collection, which is that the one you mentioned before, where it was more.
Yeah, so it's small batch production at a workshop in Yorkshire.
Yeah, okay, that's great. And so how's that going? Are you finding some traction with that as well as your individual pieces, or are you finding perhaps that's quite new, I think, for your business, the off the shelf.
It is quite new, yes. And I
Mm.
think a lot of people don't know about it yet
Mm.
because we're still in the process of doing some photography
Ah,
of
okay.
of the sample pieces that we've got. So I think that's something that we possibly need to push a little bit more. But
Yeah.
because it's small batch manufacture, it means rather than people buying it just from me,
Mm.
in the longer term, I could sell that to other suppliers who could then retail it more widely.
Ah, so then
So
you're
I
getting
think,
into
yeah,
the independent retailer game as well. So that'd be
yeah.
cool. Yeah. And have you spoken to some partners that perhaps would be open to having your pieces in there to sell?
It's very early days
Okay,
with this.
not
So
yet.
yeah, I'm still looking around and talking to people
Yeah,
about who
good.
might be able to put that in stock. But
Yeah,
that's the long-term goal with that collection because I think it's very limiting when you're doing one-offs and people have to come to you to get just one piece.
yeah,
I wanted
absolutely.
to do something that was more widely available, which could be made at a slightly lower price point.
Mm. But then and then we're back to the whole conversation about, do you want something that's truly individual, or
Mhm.
would you rather something that was, again, small, limited kind of batch processing or batch production, but then, it's like you say, it's more affordable perhaps as well. What kind of
Yeah,
clients do you have? Like
um,
who's come to you and asked you for pieces? Have you had any celebrities yet?
not really, no, not celebrities specifically, but just mostly people who want something different.
Yeah, okay.
Um, Maybe they're having their kitchen done, and that's one of the reasons why my husband's come on board to do kitchens, because quite often it is somebody who's getting a new kitchen and they want a dining table or they want
Ah,
some bar stools.
okay.
So now my husband can be doing their kitchen, and then there's the offer available of getting some like bar stools and
Yeah,
tables
some
and things
unique pieces in there as well. Yeah,
from us as
yeah,
well.
amazing. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch you grow. I mean, it's definitely a niche, but it's definitely a space for it, I think. So the more I kind of like talk to people about responsibility and sustainability, and I mean, I don't think maybe a big commercial office would look at it, but they might look at one-off pieces. But yeah, I think there's definitely a market out there for obviously, what you've got to offer, and it's amazing. And I do hope that more manufacturers come on board and can offer you those solutions as well, because I think, that's their
Mhm.
also helping that, helping their kind of CSR type side as well, isn't it? So, helping out another small business and everything.
One of the things I keep saying is that it's supporting manufacturing jobs in the UK as
Yeah,
well. Generally in areas that have had a really terrible time of it because of decades of government policy that hasn't supported manufacturing.
yeah,
And these are people who are, living and working in the UK. They're paying their taxes here, they're spending their money here.
yeah.
And so it goes round in the economy
Mm.
versus buying things from overseas where the government gets 20% VAT and then that's it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And also it almost supports those kind of like real talents, like what I would call
Hmm.
old-fashioned talents, like the wood turning, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And create there's not many furniture makers that I know, actually, to be fair, but that's not to say, because I haven't researched them basically. But having said that, I know the handful I do know that are, again, definitely more to your side of the fence, as in more bespoke items. They definitely want to do their own thing. They manufacture on site, and it is quite bespoke what they do. And I think from terms of supporting that kind of industry, and we all know that SMEs are one of the biggest supporters of the UK economy anyway at the minute. So why wouldn't
I
you want
think
to
we're
carry on supporting it?
93% SMEs in County Durham. So
Yeah,
it's a really important
crazy,
part of
isn't
the
it?
economy here. And we know a lot of great local businesses
Yeah.
that do fantastic work,
Mm.
but they haven't got a platform to sell that to the wider public.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And what I find also is that they're doing a lot of work, but not necessarily telling anyone about it, because they're
Hmm.
just either fearful. So I have a lot of comments from people saying, I'm too worried to say anything because someone's going to call me out on it. And so I keep saying, it was a bit like you're working towards the Investors Environment bronze. Um, I keep saying, if you've got the data and the evidence there to prove it, they can't argue with you, because you've got the data and evidence to prove it. They can't quibble your business. It's your business. As long as you know the data and you've got the evidence to, whether it's social responsibility or whether it's environmental, whatever it might be, then at least, if you've got the data there, just talk about it, because it's really important, I think, to stand out from your competition with that.
I think for me, it's just about being transparent.
Yeah.
about what you're doing. Next time you're shopping online for any kind of furniture, just have a look and have a look if it tells you what it's made from and where it was made.
Mm.
And you'll
I don't
find
know if
that
I want to know. It's
a
very
lot of
frightening,
they
isn't it?
don't tell you. And if they're not telling you, it's because they don't want you to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we have gotten to this habit of just buying globally without even thinking about it, really.
Yeah.
And there's also a bit of a heritage thing, I think, not in a good way, of UK manufacturing being more expensive. Well, of course, yeah, it might be. But again,
It
like you
is,
said,
yeah.
it's not.
There's no getting away from that.
No,
I can't
exactly.
compete with people who are manufacturing unsustainably in countries where they use child labor,
Yeah.
basically.
Or materials that really shouldn't be used, or shipping for a ridiculous lower cost. You know,
Mm.
it's a crazy world at the minute. And I think it's just, again, I've said it more than once on my podcast. Marketing is probably the worst industry because we drive consumerism, which obviously driving people to buy. But of course, people don't necessarily have the disposable income to buy what they want or what they'd ideally like. So they find the cheaper alternative, which is fine. But
Mm.
equally, if you can afford to buy maybe UK manufactured or just a more responsible product or service, then I think, that's a consideration we have to make, isn't it?
I think a lot of furniture is what I would call fast furniture, as
Okay.
in it's cheaply made from poor materials and it ends up in landfill fairly quickly. In the UK, we send 22 million pieces of furniture a year to landfill,
Oh my
which is absolutely
goodness.
disgraceful.
That is unbelievable.
And then
Especially when you've got so many repair places and,
yeah,
all
but a
that
lot of
kind of,
it's not repairable
because
in
it's
many
worn out
cases, or the
already.
materials are so poor
Yeah.
that it's just not repairable. And then on the other hand, I've got
Mm.
vintage pieces from the 1960s in my home, which I
Yeah.
haven't paid a fortune for, uh, and they're still usable
Yeah.
because we're not making that quality in many, or if
Mm.
we are, it's really expensive.
Yeah. I have a stall in my kitchen, which was my grandma's. And I
Mhm.
think that was probably, it must be about 60 years old, I think now. And I mean, nobody's allowed to sit on it, has to be said, because it's so delicate now. I'm just like, I can't bear for anyone to sit on it. But it's still in the kitchen, as if it's a usable piece. So looking to the future or looking at things now and the future, what challenges do you see, or opportunities even, that are facing organizations now, either just in industry generally or from a design, manufacturing point of view?
Um, I think in terms of challenges, a lot of companies have supply chains that either aren't sustainable or
Mm,
they just don't know where things come from or where
yeah.
they're manufactured. And I can kind of relate to that because the information is often not widely available.
Okay.
So, for example, I can tell you that my wood is FSC certified,
Yeah.
but I can't tell you exactly which forest it came from because the information is not available.
Okay.
For example, I can sign up to things like the ethical stone register when it comes to making, stone tops and things like that. But the information is not as in depth as I would like it to be.
That's so
So there,
interesting.
there are some limitations on what you can find out about where stuff has come from.
Okay, so even if you had customers then, so again, kind of the businesses I'm working with are in the supply chain, but don't have to report, but they maybe have clients or customers who do ask for the data because obviously they're in the
Mhm.
supply chain. So even those bodies, those official bodies like FSC, for example, can't necessarily give you the data, even though that some companies are being asked for
Not,
it, it won't necessarily
not
give
in
you.
the depth that I would like it.
Yeah, yeah,
They'll
yeah.
tell you that your wood is FSC certified and roughly where it's been sourced from, but you
Mm,
can't get the really detailed specifics, which is what I would like.
yeah.
And then when it comes to other things like screws and things like that, they're literally not traceable.
It's
It's
crazy.
very hard to know because screw manufacturers aren't telling you where the ore was mined and
Yeah,
where the screws were made and so on. It's very difficult to track things like that. And
yeah.
often you can't get the little bits and bobs that you need. So if I do a wooden dining table, for example,
Mm,
and it'll be FSC certified ash and it'll have a lovely vegan oil finish.
mm.
But then this, and I'm totally honest about this, the screws that I use might be, for example, screws that have been made in China.
Yeah. Okay. but because you can't get anything else necessarily.
Because yeah,
Yeah. So if you
and
can't source it, then, and again, that's it's amazing that you're so transparent about that, by the way. So credit to you for that. And I think it's just brilliant that you do that, because then people understand the complications that you have, like, and also it might start people questioning those businesses that do the bigger, maybe corporates who claim green and eco-friendly and all that kind of stuff, and can't necessarily justify all of their statements. Let's put it that way,
I think
without
it's
getting
just
too
about
political.
doing the best that you can.
Yeah, and it's a
And
journey, right, as
nothing's ever
well.
going to be 100% sustainable because
Mm.
everything has to be mined and trees have to be felled.
Yeah,
Everything's going to use energy and water to some extent.
yeah,
It's about trying to minimize the impact.
yeah, absolutely. But it's a journey as well, right? So, it's a journey for you, and it's a journey for industry in general
Yeah.
as well. So it's a case of saying, kind of, this is where we are now, and we're doing our best with what we have.
Mhm.
Like, until the screw industry changes, and they're a bit more transparent, or you can buy them elsewhere, or whatever else,
Yeah.
or something that fits your
Mhm.
profile better, then there's not a lot you can do about that right now, apart from
In
lobby
many cases, they
for,
don't make some things in the UK
yeah,
anymore. So,
yeah,
for example, one of the things I've been looking at for further down the line is homewares.
yeah.
So I've got a range of wine glasses that's been designed and looking for somebody to manufacture it. There's literally nobody in the UK who makes glass anymore.
Wow.
So the closest place I could get those made would probably be Poland.
Okay.
So
Not
it's
too
still
far,
it's
but
still within
it's,
the EU, but it's probably not going to be within the UK. Not
no.
because I don't want that, but because there's just nobody who can make it.
Yeah, exactly right. So again, you can only play with the cards that you're dealt, right? So yeah. What about opportunities? Do you think there's a change kind of going on where people are demanding more responsible products? And so, you're getting interest, people approaching you as opposed to you having to market yourselves out?
I think saying that you try to be as environmentally friendly as possible is increasingly attractive to people,
Mm,
especially at the higher end of the market. That's something that people really care about now.
mm,
And it creates a lot of opportunities in terms of design, I think.
yeah.
So looking at different materials, looking at
Mm,
different ways of manufacturing that can be more eco-friendly. And I think it creates opportunities to look at things in your local area. So rather than shopping further afield, thinking more about what can you buy close to home that's
mm.
being made here.
Yeah. And do you find it gives you opportunity to be quite innovative with maybe your manufacturing partners as well? Do you find that there's that kind of like working partnership together to try and drive a bit more of this?
I think sometimes they know more about materials than I do and they'll suggest things, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's
So
good.
I'll ask for one thing and they'll say, well, we can get this or we can use this, which is
Yeah.
really nice. Sometimes it's about just doing the best that you can.
Yeah.
So, for example, if we're talking about sofas, for example, high-end sofas tend to be stuffed with things like duck down, so
Mm.
feathers, which are
Mm-hmm.
a byproduct of the meat industry.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some impact there in terms of, yes, it's a byproduct, but should we be consuming so much meat? But then you're thinking about buying duck down from France rather than from China, for example.
Yeah.
So you're still
Okay.
using duck down, but the French duck down is better to use because in China they often live pluck the ducks, which is absolutely dreadful.
That sounds grim.
So yeah, there are lots of very difficult decisions like that. So again,
Mm.
when sofas are stuffed with horsehair, sometimes do you use horsehair that's a byproduct of the meat industry?
Mm.
Or do you use something that on the surface looks more sustainable, like coconut fiber,
Mm.
but which has potentially been processed using child labor?
Okay. That
And
is a minefield, isn't it? It's
it's
so
such a
difficult.
difficult decision.
It's so crazy, especially when, like you say, I mean, we bought a sofa probably, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago. I have no idea what it's stuffed with. Now I'm
Mm,
dreading what it's stuffed with. I
mm,
don't, it's not down, to be fair, but it'll be some sort of man-made fiber, I would guess, which
mm,
in some ways sounds better to me, from it's not supporting the meat industry and it's not child labor or, harming animals. But equally, I
mm,
don't know if that's any better, because once we've used it and it goes somewhere else, unless we can
mm,
unless we can deliver it to someone else to use again, as in, reusable,
mm.
then where's it going to end up? Like, what's it going to
What
do?
you'll also find is that if your sofa's got like polyurethane foam inside,
Yeah,
it probably complies with fire safety regulations.
yeah.
Whereas if it's wool, for example, raw wool is not going to comply. It ignites too quickly. So they're
Okay.
then going to have to spray it with chemicals and things like that to make it comply.
Which isn't
So
great
like,
either. It's
yeah,
really
there are
difficult, isn't it?
difficult choices to be made on all sides.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not jealous of you and your industry right
I
now.
think it's really important, though, and I also think it's really
Yeah.
important to talk about these decisions
Yeah.
and be transparent about them.
Yeah, it's been an absolute eye opener for me. It really has. It's sparked off things that I would never even have considered. And it does make you then start looking around thinking, oh my goodness, all this stuff we have and where does it come from? And
Hmm.
yeah, it definitely does influence your purchase decisions going forward or your
Hmm.
considerations, if nothing else, which is a good thing.
Then there are other things that you would think are definitely not sustainable, which are actually quite good. So things like a chipboard, you
Yeah,
would think chipboard's dreadful. But actually, the chipboard comes from a factory called Egger in Northumberland, so it's
yeah.
made locally, and they're using all their offcuts to fuel a biomass boiler, so they're not using so much electricity. And
Mm.
at most tips, they've got some kind of recycling skip, and old wood goes in there, and then it goes to somewhere like Egger to be chipped and put into chipboard.
Oh my God.
So while you might think that's not a great product, it actually is quite sustainable
Yeah.
compared to some other things.
And I guess if you knew about the process, then
Mhm.
you'd understand why it's probably more sustainable material than some others that could be used,
Yeah.
perhaps. So interesting. Kelly, it's been absolutely fascinating to have you on. My last question for you, apart from where can we all find you and your website and your brochure that will be online fairly soon, hopefully, is do you have a book recommendation that you could offer to our listeners and watchers, whether it's industry related or it could be pure fiction, your choice?
There was a book that I read recently called Everything is TB,
Okay.
and it's by John Green. And you might have read The Fault in Our Stars, which was like a young adult romance novel. So
Yeah.
he went from writing that to writing this book about tuberculosis,
Yeah. I was going to say, does
which is
TB for standing for tuberculosis?
yeah, it's a really big jump. But essentially, what he's talking about is how uh, everything in the world is related to TB in some way. And
Oh,
TB is quite interesting because despite the fact it's been curable since the 1940s, we still have over 1 million deaths a year from TB because not because it can't be treated, but because it isn't being treated.
okay.
And because it's been such a virulent disease for so long, it's
Mm,
had massive effects on everything in the world, from culture, economy, religion. And he talks about all of these different connections. And he's got a fantastic series on Instagram where somebody will send him a random thing and say, "What's this got to do with TB?" And and he'll explain how it's connected. So
really?
things, yeah, so things like someone said, "How is the Stetson hat connected to TB?" And he said, "Because John Stetson lived in New York until he caught TB and moved west for the drier air, and then he invented the Stetson hat."
Oh my goodness. That is
So
unreal.
yeah, or what was the other one? Someone had said, "How is Taylor Swift connected to TB?" And he said, "Well, Taylor Swift has a song with the line, 'Take me to the lakes where the poets went to die.' And the poets were people like Keats and Shelley
Yeah.
who'd gone to the lakes because they were dying of TB."
Oh my goodness.
So
That
all
is
of these, yeah,
unreal.
really obscure connections that are explained in the book, and it's really interesting.
I'm going to have to apologize to all my previous guests that have given book recommendations because that sounds like a fascinating book. I'm going to have
It
to
is a
put that
really
on my
good book.
list. Yeah, that sounds incredible. Hey, thank you so much. Where can people find out about you, about Spelk Studio, about the furniture you're making, the amazing kitchen design you now offer as well?
You can find me on my website at spelk.studio, which is currently being redeveloped. It doesn't have kitchens on there yet, but it will do.
Hmm.
Or you can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Spelk Studio. And something else that we've got in the works at the moment
Hmm.
is a networking event for the Northeast. So do you remember how I was saying that it's difficult to find people who can supply the things that you need
Yeah.
within the region? And I, like many other people, end up shopping with people further down the country in London
Yeah.
because they're the people that I've seen in the glossy magazines. They're the people who are doing all the advertising.
Yeah.
But actually, there are lots of people in the Northeast who can either hire me or people who I can hire to
Hmm.
do the work that I need doing.
Hmm.
And I've been thinking for a long time, how do I connect with these people? I've been going to all these networking events, and I think I've met two people who are in the same kind of industry.
Okay.
And so what I would like is a place where all of those people can get together. So we're in the process of setting up a networking event called Room,
Room,
and it's good, yeah,
ROOM.
it's ROOM, and it's
Okay.
going to be essentially for people who in the Northeast
Yeah.
who do things related to rooms or interiors. So maybe you're an architect, maybe you're an interior designer, maybe you do furniture or flooring or lighting. And
Or
the hope is
homewares.
that, yeah, homewares, and the
Yeah.
hope is that we can all get together and
Mm.
learn together and, share information and do business together within our region
Yeah.
instead of shopping elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, please let me know when that comes about and when you've got a finished offer for that, because I'll
Yes,
gladly.
absolutely. It's in the works. There's going to
Yeah.
be a page on LinkedIn very shortly and an Instagram account, so keep an eye out.
Fantastic. Well, ideally, if it's launched before this goes out, then obviously I'll include it in the show notes. If not, I'll
Yeah,
share it afterwards anyway, because I think that's amazing to be done. And well done for fitting that into your ridiculous schedule as well, by the way, to create a networking group as well. But Kelly, it's been lovely to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. I massively appreciate it.
thank you for
And
having me.
no, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you to my watchers and listeners as well. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening or watching the Responsible Marketing Podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcast from. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe there too. I also love to get reviews, as they make a huge difference to others discovering the show. So please leave a review, any comments or questions on whichever platform you prefer. And of course, feel free to share out your socials with your friends and your colleagues. If you want to contact me direct, you can email joe@jolongconsulting.com or find me on LinkedIn under my own name, Joe Long. Until next time, thanks for listening and for watching.